So I want to thank everyone for coming in for the panel, thank our guests for being here, and oh, the mic's gone up, thank you. And we have some questions and stuff we'll go over. I do want to just say, at CONvergence, we try to be very inclusive in our language. So on the chairs, there's a lot of different colored pieces of paper. If people have a question at the end, if we have time for questions, if I just suggest if you raise your hand, but also hold up a piece of paper, it helps us for calling on you. I'm the moderator for the panel, so I'll be the one probably doing that, if we have time for questions and answers. Because we're all, I guess, politicians, we all can talk a lot, so the room will not have a pause, I don't think, very much, except that we all like each other and we're polite, so there is that. So I will just let all of our guests introduce themselves. If you just want to say your name and your title, I guess, or what you're campaigning for, I think more about you will come out in our questions. So. And you can start, Curtis.
Okay, sure. My name is Curtis Johnson, and I am on the Roseville Area School Board.
Woo-hoo!
And I am running for Minnesota House.
Hi everyone, my name is Sandra Feist. Is this on? It's hard to tell from here.
Yeah,
Hello, can you hear me?
I think we have to really get close to the mic.
Hello.
My light's on.
It's not.
Ours is not.
Your light's are on? Yours is kind of glitchy. Sanders' light's on now.
Oh wait.
Oh, you got to push.
No.
Okay.
I guess let me ask you people. Can you hear me?
You
No.
have to talk loud.
Okay, I can project. I'll just project. I can actually do that. I don't need a mic. Hi everyone. I'm Sandra Feist. I was elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives in 2020.
Yay!
My district is 39B, which is the southern part of New Brighton, most of Columbia Heights, and all of St. Anthony. Thanks.
I am Laurel Deneen. I am a city planning commissioner right now in Columbia Heights, and I'm running for city council in Columbia Heights as well.
My name is Michelle Pettway, and I am on school board in Columbia Heights. And running for re-election.
Period.
That part.
We're actually all running this year.
Yeah, we are.
Actually running right now. So everyone has different terms. Who's running when and all that stuff. So this is my third year of doing this. I've also done this panel at Twin Cities Con, which Curtis joined me for that one a couple of years ago. And just thought it was really fascinating. I've been going to CONvergence since 2000, and it took like 3 years off in the mid-teens. But this is definitely like my home, my second family. And just realized as I was like running for office and watching Hamilton the year that I was campaigning, and just all the books and media that I'm really inspired by all these characters to continue advocacy and leadership work in real life, and thought I bet other elected officials do the same thing. I know Sandra and I had talked about it, just things that inspire us, and thought it'd be a cool panel. I know Curtis was a geek too, so I invited him to join it. So anyway, glad you're all here. I guess you all either are just here to support us, or you also think the idea of geeks in elected positions is also fascinating. So my questions for our guests, and I will answer as well, is what characters inspire you? What quotes or scenes or storylines inspire you to stick with leadership politics when the work gets hard? So I just think maybe first, what characters inspire you to do the work? And we'll just go down the line. Curtis.
Okay. Testing one. Oh, hey, it's working. Okay. Okay. For me, I have a lot of fandoms, and the first one would be, oddly enough, the Doctor from Doctor Who, even though Tennant is now responsible for the demise of 3 prime ministers. And Captain Kirk, actually, from the original series, and I'll go into that more a little later.
All right, thank you.
So I'm going to share this mic. So I had 3 that I wanted to focus on. The first is Sam from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah!
I'm a huge Lord of the Rings person. and as will become clear. For me, Sam exemplifies optimistic leadership, somebody who does what is right, not for their own glory, that they're happy to just do the right thing, and I find that really inspiring. I also love Daredevil. I'm an immigration lawyer. Because he believes in justice. He is a badass lawyer, and he's very non-judgmental. There are just a lot of storylines where he's surrounded by really broken people and he lifts them up and doesn't judge them. And lastly, the final girl in all zombie movies, because I'm obsessed with zombie movies. And I think that stems from this idea that sometimes the fight is the point. Like, you just fight because that's what you do, you fight. Even when it's hopeless. And I think that's, like, again, going back to like being an immigration attorney for 4 years under Trump, hopefully no more years. Anyway, like, I just realized that kind of the point is to keep going, to keep fighting for what you believe in, even when the odds are against you.
Good answer.
Sure, you can call that. When Amada asked this question, I immediately thought of Peggy Carter. Specifically from the show Peggy Carter, where she's so underestimated, she's so strong, she's so classy, and she's badass all the time. It doesn't matter if she's in the office getting coffee or if she's out kicking someone's butt. She is so classy and so badass, and I love her so much. She makes me feel just like empowered in a way, especially as someone who works, an office job like many of us do. It can feel hard to like feel confident and like powerful, especially as women. And she makes me think of that every time I think of her. And then, like, I grew up with Star Wars, and Princess Leia was, like, my everything growing up. She was so strong and such a leader without having to give up her personality, her sarcasm, her femininity, and then to go on after her planet is destroyed and become a general and just be even more badass. Those are my two big ones, and then the Doctor as well, because he's so optimistic and amazing, and he goes through so much, but keeps going and doing the right thing for the right reasons. So those are mine.
I'll just remind everyone, there's instructions on there. We really have to talk right into the microphone. There's a little sheet over there. Otherwise, it doesn't. Sandra, down by Michelle. Yeah.
I mean, I've read it if you guys want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not that I.
But we have to, like, literally the mic has to be like an inch from you. And also, because even though people can hear, some people have hearing instability, and so even if it seems loud, I'd rather be overly loud for everyone and make sure we're heard. So, thank you.
No problem. She must have known I was going to get it wrong. She's like, let me say this now. Thank you. So there's so many characters that I kind of look up to. I mean, I'm going to go a little cliche and say Uhura, because my mom was so into Star Trek, and all the way to the point where she was literally going into labor with my sister and refused to go to the doctor or the hospital because she needed to finish her episode of Star Trek. And I was just like, whoa, and that alone fascinated me. And I just had to know, like, what about this show with so few episodes that she'd probably seen already made her so interested. But then I watched and I was like, okay, I get it. Harry Potter, huge for me growing up. Big deal. I mean, when books get banned, it makes you want to read them more. And so Harry Potter and the crew, I'll say, because he never worked alone. And pretty much any character in like a kid's anything, because kind of like, kids rule the world, right? And so you always find them in these situations. I had like Ash and from Pokemon, like Sailor Moon, like all these like characters who just kind of ruled, but they weren't ruled by their adults so much. It was kind of like, we got this and we can think these through and get it on our own. And I think that me being kind of in that middle range of generation, not being too young or too old, being a 90s kid right there in the middle, kind of gave me exposure to both sides, so I can understand a little bit. But yeah, that's who I had.
Awesome. For me, I would say like one of my big inspirations is Wonder Woman.
Really?
I have been cosplaying as Wonder Woman since 2000, so people who don't know that. One of the things is that she just really leads and does the work because she loves, and she's not afraid to say that. She cares, and I think a lot of times as elected officials, we talk about like, well, it's the policy work, and it's because we have to do the, it just sounds so much more concrete and like formative, but really I think, like, I know all the people up here anyway, really love people, the community, and wanting to really help people, and that kind of gets lost in like, I don't know, Iron Man or something like that, but like, I think Wonder Woman is very much aware, and I think part of that, I even think in her costume that she's so physically exposed, and part of it's because like she's God, but also because she is really showing her care in that instead of like covering it up in armor, although we also have her in armor in Kingdom Come and stuff. So anyway, but also would say Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Uncle Ben in Spider-Man is, just with great power comes great responsibility in different versions, but also even like Superman's dad and just like these Aunt May, these caring like humans that don't have these powers like us. We don't really, we have a certain kind of power, but just remembering that like, what do we do with responsibility and position? And that, so I just see that so many things that, Gandalf and there's just so many things. It's so fun. I love being in CONvergence. So next question is like examples of like quotes. We like talk about our quotes, but also like examples of just, and this can just be kind of free form. And we can just go off of each other too, so nothing too like formalic, but like how do you, when you're feeling like things get hard, like what do you hear in the back of your mind of like you can keep it up, and maybe even examples of what does hard mean for the audience, like what is hard in your work that you have to sort of dig deep to keep going, so just so people understand a bit more of what we're doing in this work.
I can start.
Okay.
So I'll start with like the geeky part of it, because that's a little more fun. But it makes me think about some of the things that I have to go through on a day-to-day. And so I feel like it takes me back to every Disney princess who has to like overcome this huge thing, right? Something that's happening, something that's gonna happen, and they have to put on their big girl pants and just go, all right, I got this. And I feel like I'm faced with that sometimes when I'm in a situation, I know something's coming, right? Because this is life, and this is the real world, and something's going to happen. I mean, you don't know what it is, you can't see it, but when it comes, you want to definitely push through and kind of get to the end. I know that Disney stories aren't super realistic in their ending, but I had to actually realize that success is not always gauged by, a smile or, seeing people happy in that way, but sometimes just completing your goal and accomplishing something and getting to the end of this journey, right? And so it kind of pushes me to keep going. And like, I was a Disney kid. I had every VHS. I watched the originals on Disney Channel. Like, I love Disney. And I feel like all their characters kind of had that same, notion of just pushing forward, like no matter what's going to stop you, because something's going to, just keep going. And so sometimes it's hard, they always have that moment in the movie where they've broken down and they've started to give up, and something comes and motivates them to keep going. And I feel like I have that, and especially the people up here and all the support in the community and family. And so yeah, I'm a Disney princess. That's what I'm going to walk away with. Yeah.
I will say, as someone who's running for office, it's a lot. Sorry, I need to eat the mic here.
After you're elected, you'll get used to the microphone thing. Yeah.
So as someone who's running for office for somewhat the first time, we had an election that didn't quite go through last year, but earlier this year. But as someone who's in that process and you're having to talk to a lot of people who have varying opinions, who think what you're doing is right or what you're doing isn't right, and you have to kind of justify that over and over again, that can be exhausting, right? Like, I mean, we've talked about this, like it's hard to go out there and put everything out there and be judged, and everything that you say can be construed in a bunch of different ways. And for me, what keeps me going is I was a Star Wars kid, and I still love Star Wars, but as I get older, the more I love Star Trek, obviously. But the thing for me is like, what future do I want to see? Do I want to see a community that is explorative and respectful of cultures and goes out there with the idea of peacekeeping and being one world that we can all get along in and kind of be together? Or do I want to have a dark side versus light side situation forever? And for me, I want to work towards more understanding, and if I can even play a small part in that going forward, those are the kind of things that I think of when I'm thinking about why I run and what I want to do and why I want to do it.
So for me, I would say the hardest thing that I ever deal with is when like your allies, the people on your team, and you aren't seeing eye to eye, when there's like fractures within the team. And we did this exercise at our retreat last year, or I guess 2 years ago, where we had to divide ourselves into groups, and we divided ourselves into like, who is the front person, the person who's on the news talking, who is the policy wonk, who's like looking at the details, who are the truth tellers, the people who like say the hard truths and you know, speak truth to power, and then also the bridge builders, the people who are trying to like work across the aisle. And it helped us to kind of crystallize that we all bring different things. And so when I was thinking about like scenes from like my favorite franchises, I rewatched the scene in Avengers Endgame with like Avengers. And I watched it twice yesterday and cried both times. I've never like cried for awesome before to that moment. But it's just so beautiful. Like you've got we all need a Captain America, but like Captain America couldn't do it alone. Yeah. Like the Hulk had to be there, and like all of the the whole London army had to be there. Like it was just so beautiful to see like everybody coming and bringing something different and different perspectives. And I mean, we've had our Avengers Civil War, which in the books, like the actual comic books, I think is like profound. It's kind of deep in the movies, but like the comic series was just really deep. And so I think like getting through those fractures and coming together and assembling and kicking butt is a beautiful thing.
Okay. Testing. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is working or not, but Star Trek is always a winner for me. But oh, thank you. You know, for me, my first real foray into sci-fi was Doctor Who, which is still my favorite. And I've been on school board for several years, and I am now running for Minnesota House. And when you run, one of the first things they ask you is, well, why do you want to run? Okay, and you've got a number of answers that you want to give, and there's a, you know, I'll just talk about for myself. You know, there's the tendency to want to give someone the answer you think they want to hear, for me, it was pretty simple. But you know, you get your group together, and there's a lot of talk about winning and losing, and you know, what do you have to do to win? And you want to win, and you want to win, and I was like, okay. It made me think of it's like I just want to do the right thing. I want to be a good person, and this is how I want to be in the house, because I think I can be a good person in the house. And so, anytime I'm getting a lot of voices from a lot of different directions, I think about the 12th Doctor was very underrated. He had a number of speeches, but one of them, I'll just do a quick quote. And he says, "Winning is actually what you think this is about. I'm not trying to win. I'm not doing this because I want to beat someone, or because I hate someone, or because I want to blame someone. It's not because it's fun. God knows it's not because it's easy. It's not even because it works, because it hardly ever does. I do what I do because it's right, because it's decent, and above all, it's kind. And I just want to be a kind person."
So, yes, to the end game, actually, I was thinking very Civil War about how, and show of hands if you've seen Civil War. Okay, I don't want to, all right. I don't want to go too far, so I don't even know what I'm talking about. So, Civil War from the Avengers. And, you know, there's a lot of things are happening, and things are really complicated in the world, and there's been aliens, and there's, you know, people have died as like a casualty of war, we could say. And at the beginning, a woman comes up to Iron Man, Tony Stark, and says, you know, because of your actions, my son died. And it's a casualty of war, but she blames him, which we can all understand. And he is very much, a lot of things are happening, but he takes it to heart. And so when the government, the UN, is saying, you all need to be controlled, Avengers, you do not have the right to just go decide on your own who the bad guy is. You need to have other people tell you what to do. Iron Man is like, yes, I want to stay in line. I don't trust myself to make these decisions. But Captain America is like, no, I don't want to have someone rein me in. I have done stuff for the governments and military before, and I haven't trusted everything they've done at all. And so I don't want to be reined in. And so this causes this civil war of some of the Avengers saying, yes, we make our own decisions, we trust ourselves more. And the other half of the group saying, yeah, we need to be reined in, we need to be controlled by the government, being the UN. And thinking like, in my role as mayor, I feel a lot like Tony Stark in this moment of, I need to play by the rules, you know, I have to follow what the rules are, what our policies are, our ordinances are, but I want to be Captain America. I want to just do whatever I want to fix things. And so I would give, like, for instance, in Columbia Heights, we have rental licenses. And so if we have a landlord who's doing a bad job and not taking care of their rental property, we have a team that goes out and inspects it, and if they have anything wrong, they get a note, you need to fix this in the next, it's like a very generous time period, like 2 months. And then if they don't fix it, they come back, they say, please fix this. This whole thing happens, you know, I'm not alerted every time that they go do these things. But I am brought in when they're like, okay, we have another landlord who's had 6 months, hasn't done anything, and the people are living with these issues. And some may seem really small when you have your own house and you're like, well, I haven't really changed, you know, my window's broke, but I don't use that part of the house or whatever. But this is like a place where someone is trusting a landlord to do the right thing. And they know what the rules are when they sign up to get a permit. And so they haven't done it. And then we have to make a decision to pull the rental license, which means these people cannot continue to live there. And I don't know what their situation is. I don't know if they have family to live with in the next 45 days. I don't know if they're planning to move or if they're gonna be in their car. And like, it is an awful, like this is not something I take lightly at all. So it's like the Tony Stark thing of like, a casualty of doing business as usual as the government is literally people may not have a place to live in 46 days. And we don't like literally kick them out, but they also don't have a license to live there. So it's a weird limbo also created by the government. What I want to do is just say, let's just put them in a hotel, or like, can't the landlord just pay for them to do, like, can't they just fix it? Like, we have all these policies, and there's so many people who are greedy and don't care. And that's like the world we're dealing with, which is kind of like Tony Stark and all of the people when they're seeing like that there is a bigger picture of people who want to profit off of war and profit off of people not being safe or healthy. And knowing our job is like battling the middle of it is a really hard thing. So I just thought it was interesting. I'm watching that again and thinking like, man, I would rather be like Captain America and just be able to like do the right thing and help people have housing. But I have to vote because we can't have landlords doing this. We can't have people living with water in their basement and the landlords, and they're afraid to say something. That they're like immigrants or they just don't have other resources. They're just like, I'll just have to live with water in the basement. I'm like, no, this is not how it should be. So a real concrete example of that, like, oh, we are in the work of being with people's, providing services and issues for people. And yeah, we're kind of the ones stuck in the middle as a figurehead, as elected official. But I kind of thought it'd be cool to hear any of like the real world things that you deal with that you're like, oh, yeah. Yeah, Michelle? Yeah, because I think we can definitely talk like up here and like,
Yeah.
things can be difficult, but like there's racism and sexism and things, and how do we keep going to our science fiction fantasy to embolden us to do this? Michelle, yeah.
So I feel like there's this whole like keeping a humble mind, right? And learning a little bit of humility in a moment. Really quick, so I got on school board last year and I had a little moment of entitlement because I went to our main office and I, was expecting like, oh, it's Michelle. They've been saying my name for months and everyone should know who I am, right? And like the ladies in the front office didn't know me and I'm like, oh, well, like shouldn't they know who I am? And I feel like sometimes we run into those issues where you're like, okay, I just need to get a better perspective and keep my head on, And in those moments, like, because most times I just feel like a parent, someone who's just trying to do good. But then I have those moments where I'm like, wow, I didn't know I had that part of me that was there. And it kind of makes me think of like villains, like people who were good, and they were trying to do something right and it just kind of took over, right? And they all of a sudden become this bad guy who needs to be stopped. And it kind of puts me in the mind of, I want to be someone who really, has a good effect on the community, but I don't want it to go wrong. So I'm also I'm the first African-American female on the school board. I didn't know that when I was running. They told me afterwards. And so, but that put a lot of pressure on me, right? Pressure that I had to kind of understand or even take off of myself a little bit because I can't be the face of every Black person in Columbia Heights. I don't agree with every Black person in the world just because we're all Black and brown. And so I had to get a different perspective, and by me not wanting to cause harm in that position of, well, everybody's going to think this because I think this, because it's good for me, I had to actually open my mind up to different perspectives of everyone and see what's going to help everyone and what does everyone need, not just what's good for me and my family, because we're all alike, so what I say goes. And so finding that balance, I think, is really hard for me sometimes, because we all go in with our own opinions and things that we want to change, but I kind of have that added pressure of, okay, you don't want to let this group down, you want to do right by them, but you also have to keep everybody in mind too.
Thank you. Yeah. Sandra, sure. Yeah, but just, yeah. We can also celebrate each other. We want to say something. That's awesome.
Okay.
I was just trying to think abstractly about different situations I've dealt with and how my nerd fandom kind of inspired me and helped me keep going. And one of the things I thought of is I had a bill my first term that was a very nonpartisan bill, and sometimes things that are nonpartisan are really hard for people to understand why they matter. Because there are things that intuitively matter to one party or the other, and then when you're like, student data privacy matters, everyone's like, but does it? And I'm like, yes. School board members, student data privacy matters.
Right.
You were very supportive. Thank you. It was a hard bill, but I came to this moment. In general, one House member does not have the power to make something happen or not happen. But I came to this moment where, because of some very unique procedural things that had happened, all the power was with me, and I was told not to do something, and I knew that I had to do it. And so I'm trying not to tell too much specifics, but I drove to somebody's house to tell them that I was going to do this thing, and then I was going to quit the house if I had to. I shouldn't hear that. You're going to the house. You're going to tell the story. Anyway,
this is the reality of this.
Yeah, but I was just I will do this thing because I can, and I will pass my bill. This bill that ACLU Minnesota has been trying to pass for 7 years, and it needs to pass, and then I'll quit. But then apparently that showed through because the person I was speaking to was like, oh, that's stupid, you should just do your thing. like this is obviously like the next step we need to take and it's a good bill. And I support you, but I feel like just that level of like that pure like what is just and what does bravery look like in these moments and I don't know, I can't think of like a specific nerd franchise, but I feel very strongly that like for me like I think a lot of it comes back to Lord of the Rings and just doing what you need to do because it is the right thing to do and not knowing what the outcome will be. I take on a lot of bills that I don't really know what the outcome will be. Like there are really boring bills, which I love, and those bills pass, and we're all happy that we made it slightly easier to like be poor and file a lawsuit in Minnesota, and that was good. But then I also take on bills that are really, really hard, but are not predestined. Student Data Privacy Act was one. The Veterans Restorative Justice Act I passed in my first term that people have been trying to pass forever. I created an office of restorative practices. Sorry, now I'm just talking good stuff about myself, but like weird stuff that like I had to fight for, and I feel like it all comes back to Lord of the Rings. And I was thinking of a lot of dark things. Also, when you asked this question, and you know, one bill that got killed. That was like the most painful thing I've ever dealt with was the Keeping Nurses at the Bedside Act. It was a bill that would have protected nurses and patients in hospitals by giving nurses a voice in staffing because hospitals are consistently and increasingly understaffing, and it's a problem. And I had a really complicated bill that was this close to passing, and then like Mayo killed it very publicly, but I still almost got that bill passed. I was going toe-to-toe with Mayo. And I wrote a romance novel about Mayo, and now I can never publish it. If anybody wants to read my Mayo Clinic romance novel, let me know, because I'm PDF. Anyway, that bill died in the middle of the night in a really sad, painful way. But I think it's because of like my fandom of Marvel and Lord of the Rings, like these movies, like where I'm just like, we'll come back and we'll fight. And we fought again this year, we lost again, damn it. We keep losing, but one day we'll win. And I'll keep fighting because it's the right thing to do. But yeah, anyway, I'm not sure if that was...
That was perfect.
That's awesome.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I will say from my perspective, because I'm green compared to a lot of people up here, my biggest challenge was when I was asked to run, because I am a community volunteer, I'm a city planning commissioner, which is also a volunteer situation, and it just kind of coincided with my professional background, and I was like, hey, this is a great way to serve the community. And then when I was approached by someone who asked me if I'd be interested in running for city council, because we really needed someone, and my name had come up, I was like, who do I think I am? I can't run for city council. Like, I have to be out in front of people, I have to talk to people, I have to sell myself. And for a lot of people who are introverts like myself, it's not the most comfortable thing to do. And I think, I'll bring her up again because I love her so much, but Peggy Carter, kind of, her quote of, I know my own value and anyone else's opinion doesn't really matter, really hits home to me, and I think in a healthy way, because that could be taken as like, I'll just do whatever I want and it doesn't matter. But for me, it was like, I know that I'm coming from the right place. I know that I'm wanting to do this work for the right reasons. And if anybody questions me on that, I have those answers, and I can move forward knowing that I have the strength and the knowledge to do so in a responsible way. But that's kind of how I would interpret that question for myself.
Awesome.
Yay.
Okay, I'm going to turn this a little bit on its head. So I'm going to talk about Representative Feist. I met Representative Feist when she was originally running for House, and Representative Feist is very much what you see is what you get. So when she tells you something, she actually means it. And so I remember having a discussion with her before she had started, before she was sworn in, and she was talking about how she believed that not only was she going to be working with Republicans, she really thought she was going to be able to get bills passed with Republican help. And I can honestly say I don't think I agreed that you were going to be able to do that, and I probably voiced that. But
You're wearing a Hunger Games pin, so I like you.
But what I will say is that she proved me wrong. Not all of her bills get Republican support, but no one. It's a I'll say it this way: it's a small group that work as hard to get Republican votes on bills, and she does, and she has, and I so much appreciate that. And so going back to what does that make me think of? It does make me think of Star Trek, Search for Spock. It's Search for Spock. When Captain Kirk gets asked about, how he passed the Kobayashi Maru, and he said, I changed the parameters of the test. And when I think about what you've done, you change the parameters of the game, because the game is always, you get all your people to get to sign up on your bill, and that's all you need. It's like, no, I want as many people to sign on this bill as possible, even if they're not part of our caucus, even if they're not part of the people that I have coffee with, I want to hear from what the other side has to say, and when they have something interesting to say, then I'll incorporate it. That is a worthwhile thing, and I just felt I need to get that credit. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's so awesome of you. Hers is amazing. I'm so excited for your run too. I also want to mention that Curtis brings up a really good thing about gathering people and building community, which is the only way I think we can get this work done. And so building community, building relationships. Somebody had told me yes, you may be the figurehead, but at least for Columbia Heights, the mayor is only one vote. You need a rest of a council, but you also need consensus but you need guidance with staff, because staff is the ones doing the work. And we've all worked with some people who are happy to sit on emails or just not get back to prioritize things because that's just how those are human beings. And it's the same thing, I think the leadership of getting people on board, like you were saying about Sandra, is what helps get the work done. Also to say that not everyone has to be an elected official to help get the work done. We were talking yesterday in our advocacy panel about kind of being a side character. And also I was saying, it's kind of like being an ally. Is you're helping do the work to get what the community needs and wants. And so I think sometimes we get people who are well, then you know what, I want to run. I guess this is something I hear people say, and this is my own personal feeling on this. People will be well, I always just want to run for office. And I think, well, who else is already running? Who else is doing the work and can help us move the needle further than your personal goal of being well, I thought it would be a cool thing. Because being a leader in a community is about the community. It's not for me to have my name on a business card or whatever. It's that I really want our community to go further. And so I also say this really for white men, that we've had a lot of white men in leadership. And so it's okay to be you know what? I have a really great friend that's a white guy. And I've said to him when I first ran, why don't you run? You're brilliant. He goes, there's enough of people that look like me and have my backstory. He's I will use my skills and expertise to help hold up other people who need to have their voices heard. And I just thought that was so amazing for him to just offer that up. I've met a lot of elected officials, a lot of mayors who literally moved into a city, looked around, and 3 months later were maybe I should be mayor. I literally, not I looked into it, I didn't like what was happening currently, not I see a need, or I've been talking to people and the community is really asking for things and their government, isn't delivering. literally it was all just about them. And I'm not saying they were doing a bad job or didn't do a good job, but it's just, to me, it's a very weird way to be, like, everyone up here is just like, I'm not doing this for me, I'm doing this because I think that I can be the person to help in this, but I think it's best to ask questions. And how can you help take your community forward? One of the things I think being a geek is so cool in this work is that, you know, not everybody, but I like spreadsheets, and I like knowing what the data is on things, and I think everybody up here needs people to work on their campaigns. And everywhere, wherever you live, there are people who are running for office or in office, and they need our help as geeks. Like, can you imagine what we could have out there in the world if we were helping? We would have Star Trek, you know, like we would have, it's like we would have some Starfleet happening. It is a dream, like, so I just think, like, do you have any stories of community? Like, for me in the sci-fi world, it'd be definitely like fellowship. You know, like Frodo's the one who had to carry the ring, but like, how important was everybody else in the story? Sam especially, but all of them, and they all were super important. Frodo couldn't do it alone, and we definitely can feel like Frodo, feel the aloneness of being the only person of color on the council, being the first person, it's your first experience, where you're just alone in it, because we all have our own selves. But yeah, if you have any stories of like community and who you're pulling with you to help hold you up, not because they're holding you up, it's like holding up the vision of what you stand for and what you're leading. I see Laurel grabbing the mic.
I was like, well, Michelle, Amada, and I are all kind of running together. We're all kind of pulling our resources this year as we all have elections, and it's been so great to have a community of women who come from varied backgrounds, who have varied expertise, who have varied education, who have varied experiences where they grew up. It's just really refreshing to get a large group of women together and say, why do you want to do this work? How can we do this more effectively? How can we save money? How can we make sure that what we're doing and what we're spending money on and what we're getting contributions for is effective and goes a long way? And for me, having women behind me who have more experience, who have still have that passion for local government and want to make a difference for the right reasons has been so integral in the reason that I want to run, because I want to be part of that community and helping to build up other women and other people within our community who don't necessarily have a voice or just don't know how to get involved. I think that's a large part of local government's problem, is like we see these huge national races on the news all the time, but if you're talking about things that really impact where you live, your neighborhood, that's all going down at city council meetings, and that's all something that we should all want to be a part of because it affects your everyday life so quickly. It can change how you can sell a home in an instant. It can change how you have to keep your lawn. It can change a lot of things. If you can have pollinator plants. It's so impactful for every aspect of your life, and having this group of women who have kind of gathered and put themselves out there has been really impactful and strong, and it makes me really happy to be running.
We're happy you're running.
Oh, yes.
You're gonna be amazing. I'll also say, like, co-governance is so important. Like, Sandra is our rep, well, for part of Columbia Heights, but specifically me and Laurel, you're our rep now. Yeah, we're just really working like across the board, and you can definitely, I would suggest this wherever you are. You know, you can definitely send emails to your people, your council, if you have questions about chickens in your backyard, but also bigger issues across the state. You know, your mayor and your council are also talking to your state reps, and your county commissioners as well. But we're always talking, we're reaching out like, hey, someone's needing these resources, do you have any suggestions? But we definitely really need to hear from all of you, because Sandra even, like, sometimes I send Sandra emails, she's amazing at getting back to people, I am not, but she gets back in like seconds, and I'm like, well, you didn't have to respond to me, like, we know each other, like, I know I'm just sending it to you so that you can be like, I received 200 emails about this subject. And she's like, well, no, I want to get back to you. I'm like, you don't have to do that. But my point is that people are getting those emails. They are reading them, and if they don't get back to you, it's still going through the process. So they may not have time. This is like a not paid job. I get paid $6.63 an hour to be mayor. You guys are not, Sandra's not making millions either. Like, what do you make?
I don't, like 45, 50? Yeah.
Like 50,000
They
is
changed
your
it.
salary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, this is not like a money
It's not the
making.
place, I lost money when I decided to run for office, like.
Yeah. Yeah, and council and school board, what do you guys get paid?
Stipend.
A stipend?
It's like $5,000 a year.
Okay. Curtis, what'd you get in Roseville?
Yeah, when I was the chair, I got a raise to 5,000.
A year. A year for multiple meetings and 24/7 responsibility of that position as well. So we definitely need to hear from you all to know where the work needs to be done. So definitely reach out. Yeah.
And like Amada said, even if you think the person you're emailing totally agrees with you, it really does mean something to hear from people that you represent with their opinions.
Yeah, Michelle.
So I guess getting back to like community, hearing you say what you just said about getting the word out and sharing, right? We share our resources, we share ourselves with everyone. I appreciate, thank you. I forgot to push it again. Thank you. I appreciate everyone kind of rallying around me last year because I absolutely am not political whatsoever. It doesn't, I feel like it's just like space in my brain that I don't want to use. I have to give effort to that part of, of being on school board. So it comes with advocating for families and community members and things like that. All the things that you want to do, the things that you get into, being elected to do. And then there's the things that come with it that you just kind of have to know because you're in it. And I think that a lot of you have helped me to understand a lot of that area more. I mean, I love policy in the way that I know we can change it. And so, but it doesn't like, I'm not geeking over policy like Sandra. Like, it doesn't come naturally to me to go that stuff. And so I have a lot of people who help me and carry me to that next level that I need to be at to make sure I can maintain this position and continue the help that I want to do. So I feel like once I got in and I was meeting the right people and being in the right circles, it kind of made me appreciate community more. And I found where my heart kind of lies on school board because it's all about community and relationship building. I'm usually at every event. I want to meet people in the community, talk to families, see where they're coming from, get their opinions. And I feel like just everyone kind of helping me helps me to want to go out and do the same thing. And so, yeah, I just want to say I appreciate all of you for kind of helping me do that. The things that, the knowledge you guys have is just invaluable to me. Like, I would be so lost if I couldn't just text someone and go, hey, do you think I should do this or that? And she goes, well, you want my opinion? Yeah. I think you should do this. And I'm like, okay. And I value what you have to say. And 9 times out of 10, I do it. I don't trust myself sometimes. But I do appreciate you guys. I just want to say a big thank you to you and other people who aren't here who just kind of helped me get here to this position anyway. And I appreciate it more.
I'll say too, Columbia Heights is an amazing place, and you could totally move there.
Yes.
Move to my part of Columbia.
Sandra's a neighbor. She's like, I'll just move over a block. Curtis, you can just move over a block. But I was gonna say,
your district.
Roseville is a place. We got more people trying to get in and we've got a really nice shopping mall. So
And you can still visit Columbia Heights.
it's our neighbor.
you
neighbors.
can see Columbia Heights from Roseville.
Our neighbors. So we have 10 minutes left. I want to do a little bit of question answer, but also wanted to just one little more plug about, I don't want to say a plug, but kind of when the times get tough, when, I know Sandra, I think you did the Sam's quote last year. Do you already have that when you're gonna say it? Okay. I'm trying to think now. Why don't you read the quote first, and I'll share a story that I wanted to. So.
Okay, so this is the other one that every time I hear it, I cry. So picture like Frodo and Sam on the bridge, and they're in Osgiliath, and it's under siege, and they're Nazgul in the sky, and it's all sad. And so Sam says, I know, it's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here, but we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered, full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end, because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass, a new day will come, and when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in these stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going, because they were holding on to something. And then Frodo goes, what were they holding on to, Sam? Sam says that there is some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. That quote I live by. I live by that quote.
I do too, and that's, sometimes when things are hard, like talking to other elected officials who are doing this, and there's actually, in Minnesota, we have a group of BIPOC elected officials, and we get together to kind of talk about any extra struggles we have. I've had people who are newer and say like, who have English as their second language. When I say that, that also means they speak more than one language, which I think is amazing when people have more than one or two languages and like they have an accent because they speak other languages too. And he said, you know, I feel like when I talk to the mayor or when I talk to staff, they're always like, I don't understand what you're saying. And he's like, what is their deal? Like, and he speaks English very well. But this is more about patience, right, with people. And I was like, well, and I could just tell too that he was, sometimes like you don't want to admit there's racism or sexism happening, and so your brain is just kind of in this like, but maybe it's just this, maybe it's this. And it felt that way to me anyway, and I said, you know, there is like inherent white supremacy in government, and people don't have to be racist to be a part of it because it's a system that's already been built. And so whenever anything's different, it's harder everywhere, you know, not just in government. But my friend who I had said like, why don't you run for office? One time I was complaining about people that were on my past council, our past council, and he said, you know, they want you to quit. And that like just shook me, like, oh, he's like, if you weren't there, how much easier would it be for them if you weren't asking these questions? If you weren't making things uncomfortable by bringing up other realities of people in your community who aren't being served or whatever we were talking about. He said he's like, I'm not saying that they walk in there and they're saying, man, I wish that person would quit, I don't like her. But in the system of white supremacy and the patriarchy, it is like an inherent, like, you don't fit here, please quit. And as soon as he said, like, they want you to quit, I was like, oh, that's what's happening. Well, I'm not quitting. Okay, but I like kind of needed someone to just say it that clearly. And I think about that in like all of our stories, and like Star Trek, there's so many things that happen, Star Wars too, where it's just like, you know, like it's just obvious that the way it is the easy way. And we have to just keep going, we cannot quit. And I just think about Sam being like, the day will come out, and we have to have the perseverance to go through this. But I thought, if anyone has any, you know, kind of like finishing stories of something that you've gone through that you're like, I was able to, you know, not to even succeed, but just stick with it. Because like, it's a long game. I tell people, this is a long game. I'm not here for like what's gonna happen this week or this month. I'm here to get the community going as best as it can go and get the train going the right way as much as I can. Or the boat steered, people say that. Yeah, Curtis.
I have a story. Okay, in my spare time for the last 7 years, I have been working with a group of remarkable people to pass an Equal Rights Amendment for the state of Minnesota. And every year we get we get a certain amount of success, but 2 years ago, we got it passed in the Senate, and it didn't make it to the House floor. And this year, we got it passed in the House, but we couldn't get the Senate to put it on the floor. And there is for a lot of us, and myself personally, there is a lot of angst and disappointment, and which is to be expected after 7 years. But after session ended and I had some time to kind of sit with things, I realized, and I already knew it, but I was able to internalize that people have been fighting for this for a heck of a lot longer than that. And so while 7 years is a long time, okay, it should not take 7 years, okay? I'll be back next year. And this time I'll be in the House. And so it's gonna pass the House, and if I have to go over to the other body and put it on the floor myself, I will. So, I guess for me, it is about patience and perseverance. It doesn't, you don't always, you're not always gonna get what you want when you want it. And there's not always a good reason. It is what it is. And so, if I have to sit there and do this for, another year, another 5 years, another 10 years, I'll be doing that because it's the right thing to do.
Thank you, and I'm actually realizing we're like almost to time, so any just like closing remarks, we can't really go over, so just thought I'd ask if there's any closing remarks from people.
I just want to let people know that if you're interested, on August 21st, the House DFL, we have a nerd caucus. We are belonging. I'm a founder, Curtis is our newest member, and it's a trivia night, and it's super fun, and all the most nerdy House members come. So if anybody's interested, I'll take some emails, and then I can put you on our email list. Thanks. And this was amazing. You guys are all amazing, and I'm honored. And it's actually fun. Like, politics is not always fun, but serving with you all is a joy.
Awesome, thank you.
And you can be on my team because we won 2 years ago. So.
I didn't play last summer, but I played the summer before that, and it was a lot of fun, yeah. Any other last thoughts?
I just want an invitation, that's all.
Oh,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Email list.
Yeah. I want to give Curtis some competition, please.
That's very good.
Well, thank you all for coming. Like I said, I just want to, really recommend all of you to make sure you reach out to local and higher electeds. They want to hear from you. Definitely name drop. You can always name drop. I went to the panel and I said I heard a mayor and she said to call, and now I'm calling you or whatever. I have some badge ribbons if you'd like one. I know Sandra has business cards, so if you, would like any contact information from us, you're welcome to come up. But thank you so much for coming and have a great con.